In the mid-90s, the entire arcade industry went through a massive evolution. Sega dropped their revolutionary Model 2 arcade board, and 3D graphics completely changed the visual landscape forever. Sega's legendary AM2 Studio unleashed a title that completely rewrote the rules for the light gun genre. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Arcade Economy, the series where we take a look at old arcade classics to determine just how much they cost to beat during the year of their release. Last time on the show, we took a look at the classic Williams run-and-gun Narc. Today, we're putting on our badges as we take on Evil Inc. in Sega's Virtua Cop. Did Virtua Cop serve arcade justice, or just demand more of your change? As always, we're gonna find out.
Help me! Don't shoot me!
To understand why Virtua Cop was such a game changer, you have to take a look at what it was competing against. Before 1994, light gun games were completely flat. You were either shooting at hand-drawn sprites or digitized photos pasted onto static backgrounds. Sure, they were fun, but they definitely weren't the future. Then, Sega's legendary AM2 Studio, led by Yu Suzuki, completely knocked down the door. They dropped the world's very first light gun shooter built entirely in real-time 3D. To pull this off, they needed serious hardware. Enter the Sega Model 2 arcade board. Pumping out over 300,000 polygons a second, it gave Sega real-time 3D environments, sweeping cinematic camera angles, and bad guys that actually reacted to exactly where you shot them. When it was released, it was light years ahead of anything else sitting in the arcade. Virtua Cop dominated the arcades globally by late '94, but Sega knew they had to get this experience into the living room. In 1995, they launched a wildly successful port for the Sega Saturn. Bundled with the Stunner light gun, it became a massive system seller, ranking among the console's top titles. Virtua Cop even got a PC port in 1996, and eventually landed on the PS2 in 2002. And the legacy kept rolling. Virtua Cop 2 hit a year after the arcade game's release, throwing branching paths into the mix, and Virtua Cop 3 eventually dropped in 2003, bringing a slow-mo bullet time pedal to the arcade floor. But none of that would have happened without the original game laying down the blueprint for the modern light gun shooter. Virtua Cop defined the next generation of light gun shooters. The developers at Rare explicitly cited Virtua Cop as the main inspiration for their iconic hit reactions and aiming system used in GoldenEye, and without Virtua Cop laying down its 3D foundation, we never get Namco answering back with Time Crisis, and the Sega team never tweaks the engine to give us the House of the Dead. Now, back in the mid-90s, you weren't pumping quarters into cabinets for deep lore. You really just needed an excuse to shoot stuff, and Sega delivers the ultimate buddy cop experience, equipped with stellar 90s video game voiceovers.
Ha ha! Sure enough, you two. So you made it this far, huh?
You play as Virtua City cops Michael Rage Hardy and James Smarty Cools. Your job? Take down a massive, heavily armored crime syndicate called EVL Inc., because subtlety wasn't exactly Sega's strong suit back then. The game breaks down into 3 acts. First, you're busting up a black market arms deal at the docks, then you're raiding an underground base hidden in a construction site, and finally, you take the fight straight to EVL HQ to face off against the heavily armored boss Joe Fang. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but some of the background music in this game sounds like it was taken from something you'd watch on Cinemax after your parents went to sleep. If you've ever played a light gun game from the 90s, the core mechanics are exactly what you would expect. You get 6 bullets, you shoot the bad guys, and you whip the plastic gun off screen to reload when the cabinet inevitably starts screaming at you.
Reload. Shoot outside the screen. Shoot outside.
Most of us already know how that works. But the absolute genius of Virtua Cop was the target system. These little colored circles lock onto the bad guys. Green means you're safe for a second, yellow means that they're aiming, and red means you're about to eat a bullet. This is a great mechanic that allowed you to prioritize your targets on the fly. And what would a rail shooter be without the civilians? They love to jump out from behind boxes, screaming, "Help me!" right into your line of fire. Clip one of them and you'll lose a life. And speaking of lives, the difficulty defaults to 6 lives before having to use a continue. If you were a real sharpshooter, you could pull off a justice shot. That meant blasting the gun right out of the bad guy's hand for bonus points without actually killing them. In true light gun fashion, you'll shoot environmental objects like barrels or crates to uncover hidden weapons. This could include stuff like the shotgun, the machine gun, or the magnum. However, the second you take a hit, you'll drop your special weapon and go right back to the standard 6-shooter. In my playthrough, I didn't hold these weapons for very long, and I did find them to be strategically placed in areas that are either hard to hit or leave you open for returning fire. There are 4 bosses within the game with quite possibly the most generic boss names of all time. You'll face off against Kong,
Pretty bold, aren't we? I'll take care of you myself.
King, Boss,
But now you'll regret being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
and then finally Joe Fang.
This chopper is all I need. I'm through with you two. Now you meet your maker.
I wonder if he's related to White Fang. The first boss at the dockyards is Kong. The strategy here is basically a high-stakes game of skeet shooting. You have to blast his rockets right out of mid-air before they hit you, and then immediately thread a few shots into him while he reloads. At the end of the underground construction site, you'll run into King. He lobs giant arcing fireballs at you, and you basically have to shoot them out of mid-air to survive. Kinda similar to the missiles from the first boss fight. He'll also call for backup, so be sure to take out the extra goons as fast as you can so you can get back to the boss at hand. At Evil HQ Inc., you'll fight a giant bald guy in a white suit who looks exactly like the Kingpin and is literally just named Boss. His office desk transforms into this super cool, heavily armed mecha tank. To defeat him, you'll have to, you guessed it, blast his missiles out of the air while chipping away at the tank's armor to finally bring him down. But wait, you're not done yet. Beating Boss immediately triggers the true final showdown with the mastermind behind it all, Joe Fang. He swoops in and attacks you in a heavily armed military helicopter, where you're forced to shoot down a relentless barrage of more homing missiles while returning fire to the chopper itself. Once you drain his health bar, the helicopter spirals out of control and crashes into the building in a massive explosion, officially ending the game and saving Virtua City. The boss fights aren't particularly deep, but they do exactly what an arcade boss is designed to do: induce panic and make you reach back into your pocket for more change. So how much did it cost for me to beat Virtua Cop? Well, for these games I set up a counter to increase every time I hit the insert coin button, and for Virtua Cop, at the end of the day I spent a total of $7.50. Now, adjusted for inflation, and $7.50 in 1994 would feel like spending $16.40 today. Because this was right around the time that arcade games started to introduce 50-cent credits as default, some people playing this game would have had to have paid 50 cents per credit. So if that was you, then that means you would just double it and you would have spent a total of $15 to beat the game rather than $7.50. And adjusting for inflation, spending $15 in 1994 would feel like spending a total of $32.18 today. Now, it took me 34 minutes to beat Virtua Cop, which is kind of short, so that brings my total to 22 cents per minute, which is pretty high when comparing to other games I've played in the series, but in terms of light gun shooters, it's kind of right in the middle. For the bosses, I spent 25 cents on Kong, $1 on King, 50 cents on Boss, and 75 cents on Joe Fang. bringing my boss total to $2.50. And now it's time to bust out the Predatory game scale to determine just how predatory Virtua Cop was in stealing your money. Like I said, for overall cost and cost per minute, it was a little high, but compared to other light gun games, it's right in the middle. I think we spent a little bit less on this than we did on House of the Dead. Also, just consider that House of the Dead was 50-cent credits by default, so when you change Virtua Cop to that, then we would be just underneath that. Now, this is a rail shooter, so there really isn't a learning curve here. The difficulty, it does get a little unfair at times when you face the bosses just because you're facing a relentless barrage of projectiles. But if you're quick enough, you should be able to manage. I didn't notice anything like unavoidable damage or anything within the game. There are a good amount of pickups within the game, but in my experience, they are kind of hard to obtain and keep. It is a little hard to shoot the upgrades to obtain them and then shoot the enemy. But again, if you're fast enough, this shouldn't be an issue for you. But I noticed that I kind of had to make the decision of either shooting the enemy or grabbing the upgrade. And when I went for the upgrade, I didn't have the reaction time to shoot the enemy in time, and then I would just lose the upgrade. So it kind of became a let's try and go for the upgrades after I kill all of the enemies. And by that strategy, I missed out on a lot of the upgrades. So take that what it is. Or I just didn't have them for very long. For an early 3D game, this game still looks pretty good and is incredibly smooth and still fun to play today. I do think it is a little basic, but that's kind of to be expected. I mean, when you look at games that came after this, they had a lot more options like House of the Dead with the branching paths, or like Time Crisis with the foot pedal to duck. I do think this was kind of the prototype. It raised the bar and it opened the door for this type of shooter. So you have to kind of look at it like that. But when compared to things that came later, yeah, it is really, really simple. When comparing it to a series like House of the Dead, this game is a lot more forgiving. I mean, most of the enemies in this game are one-shot kills, or one-shot eliminations, I should say. And the bosses don't have like a weakness area where you have to shoot them. You just have to shoot them and it'll do damage. So considering that, I think that brings it down a little bit. Personally, I am much more of a fan of House of the Dead. It is a much more complete game, but I did have a lot of fun with Virtua Cop. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Virtua Cop a 4 out of 10 on the Predatory game scale. Do you agree or disagree with my rating? Please sound off in the comments below, and as always, I will do my best to respond. Next time on Arcade Economy, we're entering the ring and fighting our way through WrestleFest. So be sure to check out that video. If you'd like to support Arcade Economy and Mass Replay, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member or a patron on Patreon. All members and patrons get access to my Arcade Economy live stream, so you can watch me play these games in real time. At the VIP viewer level, you'll get all of my videos early and ad-free, plus member-only videos. You can also support us at the producer level and get your name shouted out at the end of each video. And with that, let's thank our producers Jake Weed, Tanner Trezza, and Pezmage. Thank you as always for supporting at the producer level and for your continued support, and a big thanks to everyone else who supports the show. That'll do it for me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and hopefully you'll see me on my next video. Thanks for watching.